It's 7 p.m. Monday, April 8th, here in Seoul.
Coming up on NEWSCENTER tonight. Korean Air and Hanjin Group chairman Cho Yang-ho dies at the age of 70 due to a chronic lung disease. We take a look back at who he was and how Korea's flag carrier is likely to storm the weather.
President Moon Jae-in appoints 5 new ministers to his cabinet despite strong objections from the opposition parties. The appointment worsens tensions between the ruling and opposition parties that were already nearing the peak.
South Korea rolls out plans to create more than $150 billion in the 5G industry in the next 7 years. President Moon stresses the industry will create thousands of new jobs.
Gangwon province struggles to return to normalcy following a massive wildfire that ravaged the region last week. The government and other organizations are actively lending a helping hand to the region, now designated as a special disaster zone, but residents say that's not enough.
South Korea's finance minister renews vows to quickly draw up an extra budget to boost the nation's sluggish economy. Stay tuned for these stories and more.
Good evening to our viewers in Asia and hello to others watching from around the world. Welcome to Arirang News Center here in Seoul. I'm Arirang.
And I'm Han. Thanks for joining us. We begin with the unexpected death of Hanjin Group chairman Cho Yang-ho. Cho, who turned a Korean Air into a globally recognized company, died at a hospital in Los Angeles after suffering a chronic lung disease.
Yes, while his illness was kept under wraps, being stripped of his board post by shareholders on top of recent scandals of his surrounding his family members and his own embezzlement charges, that is widely believed to have worsened his health conditions. Lee Min-sun starts us off.
Hanjin Group announced on Monday morning that its chairman Cho Yang-ho died on Sunday at the age of 70. Cho had been staying in the United States since last year to receive medical treatment. He reportedly died in a hospital in Los Angeles from a chronic disease while his wife, son, and 2 daughters were by his side. The company didn't disclose the specific name of the disease, but he is known to have had lung disease. Cho took over as chairman of Hanjin Group in 2003. He succeeded his father, who founded the group that owns the country's largest air carrier, Korean Air. Cho is considered an expert in the aviation and transportation field as he spent over 45 years in the sector after joining Korean Air in 1974. He also was deeply involved with the hosting of the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. However, Cho and his family have been facing a series of troubles. Cho recently lost his board seat at Korean Air in a shareholders meeting last month. It was the first time that a founding family member of one of Korea's chaebol or conglomerates has been removed from a key position by shareholders. His family has been under investigation over multiple allegations, including assault, embezzlement, and smuggling luxury goods. Meanwhile, after the news spread, shares of Hanjin Kal, the holding company of Hanjin Group, soared up by 22% as of 11:30 a.m. Monday. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
Following Hanjin Group chairman Cho's death, much attention is being drawn to the cloudy future of his family business. And our Sobobin reports his son will likely take over, but there are other options too.
Right after the news broke, shares of Hanjin Kal, the holding company of Hanjin Group, soared 22%. Investors appeared to be relieved at the end of the scandals involving the late Cho Yang-ho. But there are big questions about the next in line at Hanjin Group. It could be the late chairman's son, Cho Won-tae, who is CEO of Korean Air. He's the only one in the family still involved in the business, so it seems likely that the succession will center on him. His sisters have both been part of high-profile scandals and are considered to be out of the picture. There's also a local activist fund called Korea Corporate Governance Improvement that could try and assert itself in management. Another issue for the Cho family is tax on their inheritance. The Cho family owns about 30% of Hanjin Kal. Hanjin Kal is the holding company of Hanjin Group, which operates Korean Air, a massive shipping company, and more than a dozen other affiliates. It's been estimated that they'll owe inheritance tax worth almost $150 million. And to cover that, it's said that they might have Hanjin and Hanjin issue a bigger dividend. Alternatively, the Cho family could choose to give up their inheritance and let the company be run by professional managers. 서보빈, Arirang News.
In other news, the South Korean government has unveiled a plan to grow 5G into an industry worth more than $150 billion using technology such as drones, robots, and smart city platforms. Our Oh So-young has more.
South Korea plans to create a multi-billion-dollar 5G industry over the next 8 years, celebrating the country's launch of the 5G network for mobile users last week, the first of its kind anywhere in the world. The Science Ministry on Monday revealed its so-called 5G Plus strategy, identifying 10 core industrial sectors. The government plans to spur the development of gadgets utilising the super-fast wireless network. These include AR and VR devices, state-of-the-art smartphones and network equipment, as well as drones, robots and wearable devices. Such devices would not only offer commercial value, but also boost public welfare by improving CCTV systems, allowing the observation of all facilities, and aiding the development of 5G-based drones for postal services. Also, the plan specifies 5 service areas of focus, which include content, digital healthcare, smart cities and driverless technology. It aims to install 5G-based smart city centres to control and monitor transport and public facilities, as well as incorporate 5G technology in at least half of the country's general hospitals by 2023. In order to achieve its goals, Seoul plans to expand public investment for 5G projects, as well as cooperation with the private sector, by offering tax incentives and subsidies for related ventures. The government expects its 5G initiatives to create $158 billion worth of new production value, of it $73 billion in exports, as well as 600,000 new jobs in the sector by 2026. Oh So-young, Arirang News.
South Korea became the first country to launch a 5G mobile network for consumers last week. And according to President Moon Jae-in, it marked the start of a great technological transition. The president says it's going to mean more business opportunities and thousands of more jobs. Shin Se-min reports.
A new beginning, says the president, on the launch of the newly introduced 5G technology. President Moon Jae-in, referring to Korea becoming the first country to roll out a super-fast 5G mobile network, said that being first in the world means that Korea's standards can become the global standards.
대한민국의 대전환이 이제 막 시작되었습니다. 세계 누구도 가보지 못한 길을 향한 우리의 한 걸음 한 걸음에 세계의 많은 국가와 기업들이 주목하고 있습니다.
With it, the president unveiled the ambitious goal of earning 15% of the global market share by 2026, hitting $73 billion in 5G-related exports and creating 600,000 new jobs in the sector. He also said that through national strategies, his government will help create the best ecosystem for 5G technology.
정부와 공공 분야에서 먼저 5G를 도입, 활용하고 과감하게 실증 사업과 시범 사업을 실시하여 시장이 빠르게 활성화될 수 있도록 돕겠습니다.
Stressing that being first doesn't necessarily mean being the best, President Moon said South Korea's next challenge is to become the world's leading player in the sector. He also noted that the country will invest in research and development to make sure the system is secure. He said the government will work on narrowing the digital divide and ensure people benefit equally from the new technology, while being cautious that the new industry does not get tied down by regulations. The president said that despite such challenges ahead, the new technology will be a chance for the Asia's 4th largest economy to lead the entire world, calling the new 5G service a wider and faster highway for IT and communication. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in has appointed 5 new ministers to his cabinet despite objections from opposition parties. Those appointees are Kim Yeon-chul for Unification, ruling party lawmaker Park Young-sun for SMEs and startups, another lawmaker, Jin Young for Interior, Park Yang-woo for Culture, and Moon Sung-hyuk for Oceans and Fisheries. There had been 2 other nominees, but their nominations were scuttled because of suspected ethical lapses. The opposition parties have been objecting some of Moon's picks over their qualifications, but their appointments do not require parliamentary consent. Meanwhile, South Korea's new Unification Minister, Kim Yeon-chul, says the key to building peace on the Korean Peninsula is the economy. He was speaking today at his inauguration. Take a look.
In pushing for denuclearization and building peace, South and North Korea should find opportunities to co-prosper. We don't know when an opportunity like this will come again. I will work to strengthen a virtuous cycle in which we consolidate peace through the economy and then, in turn, enhance economic cooperation through peace.
The new minister added that the most important thing now is to take peace forward to the point where it cannot be reversed. He stressed that inter-Korean relations will have to be institutionalized so they aren't affected when administrations change. Now, today was meant to be a brand new start for Parliament as they opened a new session, but the rival parties have been unable to agree on an agenda. Things are tense after the president appointed 2 ministers, as we heard, despite objections from the opposition. Kim Min-ji reports.
The April parliamentary session kicked off on Monday, but it's had far from a smooth start. Rival parties met in hopes of setting the agenda for the 30-day session, but left empty-handed. This was in part fueled by President Moon Jae-in's appointments of his new unification and SME ministers, which some opposition parties were against. During their confirmation hearings, the Unification Minister came under fire for his past remarks as well as views on North Korea, while the SME Minister was criticized for refusing to submit documents concerning ethical lapses. The main opposition Liberty Korea party denounced the decision, saying it shows the top office's arrogance by ignoring the demands of the opposition and the people.
I believe the president isn't listening to the public sentiment. He has given up on the people.
This could put the brakes on a stack of contentious bills piled up at Parliament. Those include ones related to flexible work hours and the minimum wage system. The government is also due to submit its supplementary budget proposal aimed at revitalizing the economy and tackling fine dust pollution later this month. The ruling Democratic Party urged rival parties to come together and do their job to deal with issues at stake.
The National Assembly hasn't been able to pass bills related to economic revitalization or improving people's livelihoods this year due to other issues. Even if there is political strife, we still must get our work done.
While the disputes over the new cabinet appointments have cast a dark cloud over the April session, rival parties have agreed to work together on urgent issues, such as the aftermath of the large fire that broke out in Gangwon province last week. They agreed to make sure the reserve funds and the extra budget can be used to support the affected areas, and they will also contribute a portion of their April salaries to extend a helping hand. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
We would like to make a quick correction. I said in the opening of the previous report that the president appointed 2 ministers, where in fact it is 5 ministers, so apologies for that. Meanwhile, South Korea has replaced the chiefs of several branches of the country's armed forces. A couple of them are known for their expertise in military operations, which is why watchers say Seoul has tapped them to prepare for retaking wartime operational control from the United States. Oh Jung-hee reports.
Seoul's Defense Ministry on Monday replaced the chiefs of the country's Army, Air Force, and Marine Corps. South Korea tapped Lieutenant General Cho Yang-ho as the new Army Chief of Staff. He used to be the Chief Director of Operations at the country's Joint Chiefs of Staff and is known for his wide expertise and experience in military operations. Observers say picking him as the top Army officer is to be ready to take back wartime operational control from Washington. Over at the Air Force, Lieutenant General Won In-chul was appointed its new Chief of Staff. former vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Won was involved in Seoul's push to create a smaller but smarter military, as well as enforce the Inter-Korean Military Agreement reached at last year's September summit. He's also known as an operations expert within the Air Force. Major General Lee Seung-do, who was the chief of Military Readiness Inspection Group, was tapped as the new commandant of the country's Marine Corps. In addition, Lieutenant Generals Choi Byung-hyuk and Nam Yong-shin were appointed as Deputy Commander of South Korea-U.S. Combined Forces Command and Commander of Ground Operations Command, respectively. Seoul's military says that this reshuffle will ramp up efforts to achieve the Korean Peninsula's denuclearization and maintain strong military readiness. The 5 top officers will be officially appointed by President Moon Jae-in on Tuesday. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Now, in other news, efforts to recover from last week's wildfire that ravaged the eastern coast of the country is ongoing. The government is also providing financial support, but local residents say that is just not enough. Lee Ji-won reports.
The extent of the damage from last week's wildfire in Gangwon-do province is slowly coming to light. The fire, which started Thursday night in Gosang County and lasted 3 days, burned down an area the size of about 742 soccer fields, killing 1 person and destroying 478 houses. As of Monday morning, 335 houses in Gosang, 71 in Gangneung, and 60 in Sokcho were destroyed, resulting in more than 800 people having to stay in one of the 19 provincial shelters prepared for them. As well as people losing their homes, 434 pieces of farm machinery were destroyed and 41,000 farm animals were killed in the fire. Now the recovery efforts have started. Most communications transmitters and internet lines have been restored, and cash donations to public organizations to help the victims of the disaster totaled more than $6.2 million as of Sunday. Government support will also be provided to the affected areas after Gosang and Inje counties and the cities of Sokcho, Gangneung, and Donghae were designated as special disaster zones over the weekend. The designation comes as the size of the disaster is too big for local districts to handle on their own. People in the affected areas will receive compensation for property damage and loss of life, financial support for medical treatment, loans and tax and utility postponements. Part of money to restore homes will be supported as well. However, there are concerns that this won't be enough. Even those people whose homes need completely rebuilding will only get $11,000 per household from the government. They could apply for a loan of about $50,000, but as most of the affected residents are elderly, it's unlikely that they will be able to pay off the debt. While the total financial loss from the fire has not yet been tallied, Gangwon-do Province Governor Choi Moon-sun said an estimated $61 million will be needed to restore all the houses, and he has asked the government to provide 70% of it. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in's got a packed schedule lined up for this month. After his brief trip to Washington this week, he's scheduled to visit 3 Central Asian countries to promote his new northern policy. From the 16th to the 23rd, the president will embark on state visits to Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. He's slated to meet with the nation's respective leaders to discuss ways to boost bilateral cooperation. There have been growing concerns about the South Korean economy, with the total amount of exports falling for 4 consecutive months. To this, the finance minister once again pledged fiscal support to help revitalize the nation's economy. Our Ko Ryun-hee reports.
South Korea's finance minister has announced that the government will move faster to draw up an extra budget to boost the economy. This comes after the ruling Democratic Party, the government, and the Blue House agreed last week on the need for an extra budget to manage economic downside risk and to do something about fine dust pollution. The government plans to submit the budget to the National Assembly by April. Speaking Monday at a meeting of ministers related to the economy, Minister Hong laid out the urgent issues the country faces. For instance, the head of the IMF warned last week that global economic growth has lost momentum, and that 70% of the world economy is likely to slow down this year. Trade figures aren't looking great either. The WTO announced on the same day that world trade is expected to grow by 2.6% this year, which is sharply down from an earlier forecast of 3.7%. Slower growth will likely hit Korea's export-based economy, so Minister Hong promised to come up with new measures to promote innovation in traditional industries like shipbuilding and autos. And speaking of innovation, the government also announced that Korea will join WTO talks on e-commerce in May or June this year, along with around 70 other countries. This will create international trade norms in the field, which will help boost Korea's exports, especially for small and mid-sized businesses. 고른이 아리랑 뉴스.
South Korea is investing heavily in urban regeneration as part of efforts to improve the social infrastructure of outdated urban areas across the nation. The project is also expected to boost the local economy and create more jobs. Our Cha Sang-mi has the details.
The South Korean government has designated 22 new areas for urban regeneration for the first half of this year. It comes as part of government plans to inject over $12 billion to revitalize the local economy by 2023. Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun during the Special Urban Regeneration Committee meeting on Monday said South Korea's cities were built when the economy was growing rapidly and the population was rising, but that the cities are now growing old.
By next year, 40% of our buildings will be over 30 years old. Urban regeneration will rise as an issue as important as constructing new buildings.
The Transport Ministry said it will select an additional 100 areas for urban regeneration this year, of which 30% will be selected during the first half of the year and the 70% in the latter half. The project is mainly divided into two types, improving the residential environment and forming innovative clusters. The project areas are dispersed throughout the 9 provinces of Korea, including Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces. The goal of the project? To improve housing, welfare, and quality of life by repairing residential environments and expanding parking lots, libraries, and care homes, and to restore urban areas by turning old downtown areas into innovative clusters that combine entrepreneurship, culture, and administrative functions. The government believes the project will create jobs and attract visitors to the rejuvenated areas. The project also aims to help integrate local people and restore communities. As well as financial support, the government will help these projects through other means such as deregulation. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
Denuclearization talks between Pyongyang and Washington have been deadlocked since the Hanoi summit ended without an agreement. With Presidents Moon and Trump set to meet later this week, our Kan Hyung-woo tells us how the allies will try to move things along.
How to move forward in the denuclearization dialogue with North Korea will be one of the most closely watched topics at the upcoming Moon-Trump summit in Washington. Seoul has been clear that North Korea and the United States need to do more to turn a small deal into a good enough deal. But Washington, according to Reuters, tried to get a big deal that does everything all at once, lifting all sanctions if North Korea gives up all of its nuclear weapons. Experts say Presidents Moon and Trump will try this week to find common ground, but it will take time for them to find a way forward.
They'll try to resolve these different ideas South Korea and the U.S. have about North Korea's denuclearization and show that the alliance remains strong.
When the first ever meeting between a North Korean leader and a sitting U.S. president took place in June 2018, they agreed that the Korean Peninsula should be denuclearized. They also agreed to establish new peaceful relations to provide a secure guarantee for the regime and to repatriate American soldiers who died in the Korean War. But the only thing on that list to be checked off so far is the repatriations. For the rest of the year, there was little progress on the nuclear issue. Kim and Trump met again this February in Hanoi, only to confirm their differences and leave without a deal. This Thursday, North Korea will hold the first meeting of the 14th Supreme People's Assembly, so eyes will be on what Kim Jong-un is going to say about denuclearization talks with the U.S. Kan Hyung-woo, Arirang News.
Franchise companies in Korea have more franchisees, but business is slow, suggesting the market is saturated. Data from the Trade Ministry shows that in 2017, revenue was up nearly 3% on year, far lower than the 17% growth 2 years prior. The number of franchise stores, though, had risen more than 5%. The ministry said they were struggling with higher labour costs and more competition. South Korean golfer Ko Jin-young has clinched her first major LPGA title. She won the ANA Inspiration held at the Rancho Mirage in California on Sunday with a score of 10 under 278. It's the golfer's second victory in 2 weeks after winning the Bank of Hope Founders Cup. Ko is the 5th Korean golfer to have won an LPGA tournament this season. About 1,000 foreign runners participated in Pyongyang's International Marathon on Sunday, more than double the amount last year. The North State media said runners from China, Kenya and Ethiopia, among others, took part in this year's event. The Mangyongdae Prize International Marathon began in 1981 to celebrate the birthday of North Korean founder Kim Il-sung. The latest music video by Korean girl group Blackpink has set a new record for becoming the fastest music video to surpass 100 million views on YouTube. Kill This Love reached the milestone just 2.5 days after it was released on Friday. The single got its first 10 million views in just 4 hours. Kill This Love has also ranked at the top of iTunes in 37 countries and is ranked 4th on Spotify's global top 50. That's your 3-minute news flash. News in depth coming up next. But before we look at news in depth, it is time to look at the digital media content available on Arirang's website and other social media platforms.
And today, Justin from When in Korea, or Wink, checks out the hottest places for K-pop fans to visit in Seoul. Take a look.
So in today's episode, we'll be visiting some of the hottest places that you should all visit as fans of K-pop. 28 posters. Oh my goodness, that's awesome. Yeah, that's true fandom. Look how cute you are. Have you been, RM? Yo, we're at the spot, your favorite spot, right? Okay, so in the Myeongdong area, there's a huge variety of different K-pop stores, not just album stores, but they have these accessories too. Is there a specific reason you guys came to Myeongdong?
We Googled it and they said that there was K-pop like record stores, and so we're like, oh heck yes. I did. I bought a 17 album.
Oh, you bought that? That's awesome. Yeah, that's true fandom.
If it's a really good one, I buy the album.
So she bought the 17 album. There you go. You're interested in K-pop?
Yes.
Who's your favorite K-pop artist?
I think about it 24/7.
Nice.
EXO.
EXO? Oh, right away, right away. Can you show us some of the things that you bought? A couple posters.
EXO album.
Yeah, I love you, Seoul, to the camera.
Okay.
Okay. So have you ever been to Myeongdong before?
Oh, no, this is my first time. There's so much K-pop stuff.
You love the K-pop stuff, right? Can you show us some of the stuff that you bought?
This is Jae-in, my idol.
All right, guys, so we have Jenny from Blackpink. We're gonna pick some clothes for her to keep her warm. Okay, so we're gonna go with the gray top, kind of dark gray. Let's see what swag you got. Let's go. She's got that smart, sexy vibe with the glasses on. Ta-da! Look how cute you are. Yo, we're out here, brother. Yo, we're at the spot, your favorite spot, right? Have you been, RM? The Namjoons? Yeah, how you been, brother?
It is an incredible honor to be invited.
Yeah, me too, man. Yeah, so this is the spot that you mentioned in that one song, your solo. What was it called again? Oh, right. It's Reflection, right? Reflection, I remember now, yeah. Yeah, I understand why you like this spot. You know, just sit here, stare at the water, watch the subway train go by, watch the people living life. I really think Tuksam is the best spot for you to look back on yourself. I agree with that.
I used to look up at the night sky and wonder. There was a small voice inside of me that said, wake up, man, and listen to yourself.
South Korea faces a critical week as the much-anticipated Seoul-Washington summit on top of North Korea's Supreme People's Assembly take place this week. While the world is watching closely on the developments surrounding the Korean Peninsula, today we go in-depth on the possible solutions to the current nuclear stalemate. For that, Dr. Kim Hyun-wook, professor at the Korea National Diplomatic Academy, now joins us in the studio. It's always good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Let's begin with North Korea's Supreme People's Assembly. The first session of the North's newly elected parliament will convene this Thursday, and it's already making the headlines. Could you start us off by explaining the significance of this gathering?
Yes, Supreme People's Assembly is like a legislative organization for other countries. Of course, it's clearly not a democratic organization. Of course, every regions in North Korea elect people who would be representing its people at the Supreme People's Assembly, but it's not exactly the democratic way to elect them. So it's not, indirectly representing what North Korean people are talking about and their needs and interests, but it's just a place to gather people's consent for Chairman Kim's North Korean leaders' directives for its policies and so on and so forth.
During last year's assembly, North Korea announced that it'll focus on the economy rather than focusing on its nuclear development program. What kind of announcement or policy direction do you expect from this year's assembly?
Yes, you're right. Last year, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, not exactly the leader, Supreme People's Assembly at the time, they held the Central Committee of the Workers' Party, and they had an entire members meeting in which the North Korean government, they announced a new strategic directives, which means that they will focus their policies from nuclear to economic. This year, you know that the Vice Foreign Minister Cho Yang-ho had a press conference in Pyongyang before, and she said that there would be Chairman Kim's intention to be released someday soon. So I think many experts are thinking that the place and timing for Chairman Kim to announce his thinking and plan vis-a-vis the United States will be the Supreme People's Assembly. So we'll see what would be the directives that Chairman Kim will say in the Assembly about the future policy towards the United States, what kind of stance North Korea will take vis-a-vis the United States, etc.
Like you've mentioned, North Korea is yet to make its post-Hanoi plans. Do you expect some fresh and new approach from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un?
Vice Foreign Minister Cho Yang-ho, his press conference was very harsh, at least in the surface. It wanted to look very tough to the United States. It seems like Chairman Kim's disappointment about continuing its dialogue with the United States, so and so forth. But the current reality within North Korea is not really good to disconnect its talk with the United States. If it disconnects its talk with the United States, there will be no other ways but to just sustain the international sanctions on North Korea. No other countries like Russia and China would be willing to help North Korea to have loopholes in international community's sanctions on North Korea. So I think Kim Jong-un would still leave some leeway to continue talk with the United States. I'm not sure what specific talk it will Kim Jong-un will announce, but I think it will contain a hotline voices, but at the same time some voices that it wants to continue talk with the United States. So it will be kind of a lukewarm message to the United States.
So severing talks with the U.S. is not what North Korea wants either. Many are labeling the upcoming Spring People's Assembly as Kim's second term of Kim's reign. Interesting point to note, though, is that the name of Kim Jong-un wasn't shown at the ballot when North Korea held its national election last month. Could there be some changes to Kim's political position?
Yes, in the North Korea's constitution, it stipulated that the chairperson of the Standing Committee of the Supreme People's Assembly will be representing North Korea, which means that Kim Yong-nam, who is now a Standing Committee member's chairman, will be the representing the North Korea when some other envoys or other countries, foreign countries, representatives are visiting North Korea. So I think that was partly because Kim Jong-un's father, was kind of reluctant to meet other people, very happy to have a very good diplomatic channels and relationship. He was not the kind of person. But I think Kim Jong-un, who is trying to make North Korea more a normal state, I think needs to deal with these kinds of confusion, who is representing North Korea. So I think by revising constitutions, I think Kim Jong-un will try to make himself the only person that would represent North Korea instead of Kim Yong-nam.
Now, all eyes are on whether President Moon and his counterpart, Mr. Trump, can find a breakthrough in the current nuclear stalemate. The U.S. has been clear all along that it wants a big deal or a complete denuclearization of North Korea before anything else can happen. Do you think Mr. Trump would stick to his hardline policy this time around as well?
At least the fact that Security Advisor Bolton is taking initiative about the North Korea policy means that the U.S. this time is serious about being harsh on North Korea. The U.S. position was not this harsh before Hanoi summit. U.S. was willing to be taking a step-by-step simultaneous approach vis-a-vis North Korea. If North Korea takes some measures to denuclearize itself with the initial, measures, the U.S. at the time was willingly, release some sanctions to be softened, as an initial phase. But after Hanoi summit, I think, President Trump really was disappointed with Kim Jong-un. Maybe Kim Jong-un, trusted himself too much vis-a-vis, President Trump. But anyway, after the Hanoi summit, the U.S. Policy and atmosphere vis-a-vis North Korea really tremendously have changed a lot. So I think this time I'm not sure what kinds of coordination would be possible, but I think the U.S. You mentioned it right that the U.S. position now is that it stick to the big deal and comprehensive deal. It also goes back to the denuclearization first and incentives later, and also it says that until there is a complete denuclearization, there will be no sanctions to be really, softened. So, yeah, it's very tough, I think so.
Now, having said that, what strategy do you expect from President Moon Jae-in, who from the beginning have put great emphasis on South Korea's role as a mediator?
I think the South Korean, high-level officials have been visiting Washington, D.C. many times recently, and I think they have come up with some kinds of core issues, which means that if South Korean president can persuade President Trump about the possibility of small deals, now the U.S. wants a big deal, but if small deals between North Korea and the United States is possible, then I think there will be some hopes that the two countries can come up and coordinate the different positions too. The U.S. says that, no denuclearization, no sanctions softened, but still small deals possible if, for example, North Korea still comes back to the Yongbyon facilities dismantlement, but at the same time requests just a small part of the sanctions to be softened. I think that kind of thing will be possible. So I think the focus that the South Korean government and President Moon would take on the President Trump, I think, will be the possibility of small deals between two countries, between North Korea and the United States.
Now, how far should the talks between Seoul and Washington reach in order to call the summit successful?
South Korea and the United States?
Yes. How far do you have to meet halfway in order to call the summit successful?
I think President Moon Jae-in and President Trump, the problem is that they have their own interests. South Korean president is thinking about the North Korea issues. That's every agenda that he's thinking is important issue when he meets President Trump. But President Trump is thinking about the U.S.-South Korea alliance to be part of the Indo-Pacific strategy, and this time President Trump wants to have a solid trilateral cooperation between U.S. and Japan and South Korea. So I think these issues would be raised when President Moon visits Washington, D.C. Because recently the U.S. has revised its military strategy on Asia, and I think in that sense wants the South Korean contribution to the Indo-Pacific strategy of the United States. So I think they have different agenda, but I think still, as I have mentioned, if they come up with an agreement that maybe North Korea and United States begins working level discussion, I think that will be partial success, I think.
Now, one last question before I let you go. Aside from North Korea's denuclearization, what other issues do you think will be brought to the table during the summit?
I just have mentioned that the U.S. policy on Asia, especially during the Obama government, really focused on the air-sea battle, which means that Air Force and Naval Force of the United States will be the major force to contain and deter China. But recently, the Army of the ground force of the United States has been an important part of the deterring China thing. So I think they have recently changed its military strategy vis-a-vis China. So-called, I forgot the exact term, but combining all these three military and make a joint effort to be efficient in deterring China has been a recent military strategy vis-a-vis China. So I think in that sense, I think that President Trump would request President Moon Jae-in to be a much more active contributor to the U.S. policy on Asia. And I think in that sense that there will be some kinds of agreement on that.
All right, Dr. Kim, thank you as always for your insights today.
Thank you very much.
The weather warmed up nicely today with sunny skies in most parts of the nation.
That's right. And for the latest update on the weather, let's turn to our very own Michelle Park at the Weather Centre. As we like to do, Michelle, what is the latest?
Well, we got to enjoy the nice spring weather today. However, dry conditions continued. Now, dry weather warnings are still issued for the most parts of the eastern regions where a large wildfire occurred, so please take extra care in those areas. And tomorrow afternoon will be cloudy with rain developing. The weather will also be wet in Beijing and Pyongyang, while Tokyo will be sunny with a few clouds. And the rain system will hit Jeju and the southern coast, bringing down about 30 to 80 millimeters of precipitation. And the east coast and the southern provinces will see some 10 to 40 millimeters. And the capital can expect lighter showers. Checking out the readings for tomorrow, it'll be mild as today. The morning temperatures in Seoul is set to reach 7 degrees Celsius, while Busan and Jeju rises into the low teens. The afternoon highs will be a couple of degrees lower than the seasonal average, ranging between 15 and 18 degrees across the nation. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
And that wraps up this edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching.
We'll be back same time tomorrow with more domestic and global news updates.